Matt Lee, I'll announce for you because you're so shy with the Associated Press. Sir, what can I tell you?
Well, first of all, thank you for your opening remarks there. And I would also say congratulations, because for those of us who were around back in the beginning of the first Trump administration, the first State Department briefing in 2017 was on March 7th. So you have beaten that by one day. I don't know if you're aware. No.
know.
You know, that's
all right.
So anyway, so you got that. You have a record already.
Okay, thank you.
So anyway, yes, thank you very much for your commitment to, speaking to us and being open and transparent. I just want to say before I begin, and I have a very brief question, but before we begin, that I think everybody in this room understands that elections have consequences. Everybody in this room understands that the President of the United States sets the agenda for foreign policy, and so the questions that you will get today and going forward are all aimed at trying to find out what that policy is, one, and then how the State Department is actually implementing it. So
sure.
I hope in that, with that we can go forward. So the first thing, my question is about the AID, sure. USAID. So on January 20th, the entire Function 150 account of the federal budget, which is all of the State Department and USAID, including operations, salaries, was roughly about 1% of the budget. What's your understanding of where that percentage is today?
Well, what I can tell you is President Trump was elected to change the status quo. Part of what has initiated this dynamic that we've all watched play out is what's it been? I think it's been 6 weeks. Is an effort to deal with waste, fraud, and abuse. This began with a simple inquiry of USAID to look at their books, to look and inquire, and they refused. They said, we're an autonomous organization, you have no right to come in. The intention was not to do it in a manner that you've been watching unfold. It began because there was no cooperation at the beginning. And the inquiry, of course, was because of the debt, the nature of being $2 trillion, that it was an unsustainable and remains an unsustainable way of running anything, a household or a government. There's a point where you have to look up and say, we need to see at least what's happening. So this has been a pause, a 90-day pause, we shouldn't forget that, to look at the nature of how the taxpayer money has been spent and if it was being used in the proper way for the things that we've allotted it for. And that began. It was certainly in a manner that was not planned on, but we needed to do it. It was something that was, of course, important to accomplish the nature of dealing with, is there fraud, is there abuse, is there waste, how can we fix the system so that taxpayer dollars are being used properly? And in the process, of course, we've looked through some of these issues. You heard at the joint session of Congress addressed by the President, some of the remarkable programs that we were paying for around the world, millions of dollars. Clearly, change has had to be made. And that's what we're doing right now. There's change not only when it comes to what's being funded, but also how the bureaucracy works, and if a bureaucracy the size that it was needed to exist in the way that it exists. All of this review is important. At the same time, within a review like this, because you're looking at whether or not there's an efficiency in the way money is spent, it doesn't mean that we're not going to be doing foreign aid. It's a matter of how are we going to be doing the aid, and if it is effective, and if it is efficient, and if it achieves the goals that we want that make America safe, more prosperous, more secure, and there's nothing that's deviated from that. On the issue of the numbers, you asked about numbers. Clearly, this is a rapid dynamic. This is a process that is an internal process that involves an entire host of decisions that are being made over a number of different bureaus and dynamics that I'm not a part of. We see what the results are. We have been getting the notifications about the nature of the numbers involved, but I can't go into specifics on this day or how they might even be tomorrow.
Okay. Well, the reason that I pushed on the
Yes.
percentage number was because one of the first fact sheets that this department put out, and I know that you probably didn't have much of anything to do with it, but it was about.
Underestimate me. Not yet.
Well, it was on January 29th, and it was about the executive order on.
Sure.
And it said in there, even setting aside generous support for Ukraine over the past several years, the U.S. is spending roughly $70 billion in foreign aid annually. Well, that was just not correct. And several hours later, after myself and other people pointed this out,
yes,
it was changed, but it wasn't sent out again. It was just changed online. But it was changed to $40 billion instead of 70.
Right.
And I just want to know, so the people who put this together, and I don't know who they were, but that's a $30 billion
yes,
mistake. Is
yes,
that the kind of accounting that?
No, it's not. And I think, and can speak on behalf certainly of my department and of this entire department and the speed with which some of these things are happening, that mistakes are corrected. There was one.
Okay.
It was corrected, and that's certainly not going to happen again. That's what I can
Okay.
pledge to you.
Okay.
I do know, and as everyone learned on that day, that the data matters, which is why I'm not going to stand here and guess, that the facts of the matter matter. And we're determined, I am determined in this role. This is not just a first day for me, but also for the department to see the nature as a reminder of what you're all interested in and what we have to speak to. And I appreciate that. But yeah, it's everything's a learning curve.
Yes.
But at that point, of course, that's a significant difference. And let's just say it's not going to happen again.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.